Hello and welcome to the Cancer Interviews podcast. I'm your host, Jim Foster, and if you find the information in today's episode helpful, then we invite you to please subscribe to our podcast and the YouTube channel by clicking on the links below. And if you click the bell, you'll be notified when we post a new episode. On this segment, I have the honor of introducing an amazing woman from White Bear Township, Minnesota, who was diagnosed with and survived multifocal lung adenocarcinoma in situ, also known as non-small cell lung cancer. It's our hope that you'll find her story both informational and inspirational. So please join me in welcoming Renee Marrero to the show. Renee, welcome to Cancer Interviews.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Well, we're so happy to have you. And Renee, here at Cancer Interviews, we like to start by getting to know more about you. So please take a few minutes and tell us about your pre-cancer life, like where you're from and what your life was like growing up and what your interests and work was prior to your cancer journey.
Sure. So yes, I grew up in Minnesota. I lived here my whole life. I'm one of three daughters. So I have an older sister and a younger sister. And I have currently a very big family. I have been blessed with 3 children and additional 4 children as I got married 2 years ago. So we have 7 children together and are just enjoy time with them, camping, outdoors. We live right across from a lake, which we get to go kayaking on and paddle boarding. So really been blessed with an amazing family since I was younger and my current family. So.
Well, that sounds wonderful. What a wonderful family you have. 7 kids. I have one daughter that's 17, and that's more than I can handle. So I don't know how you do that.
Yeah, they keep us busy.
We've been thinking about getting some kayaks and a stand-up paddleboard. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, we love them. And yeah, the kids are enjoying them. They get up too many on one paddleboard and then they like to jump off into the lake. And so they just have a great time. So we've really had a good time with that.
Oh, that sounds like a blast. Well, yeah. How would you describe your overall health and lifestyle in your years prior to cancer?
Yeah, I really had no major health issues. Unfortunately, high blood pressure does run in my family. So after my daughter was born, I did develop high blood pressure. So I've had that for 16 years, but it's controlled with medication. But other than that, I exercised not as frequently as I should currently, but I do enjoy getting out and running and again having an active lifestyle. So was healthy up until this diagnosis.
Okay. Now, how many children did you have when cancer came into your life?
Yeah, so I had 3. So I had 3 children.
Okay.
So this was 3 years ago.
Okay.
Am I thinking that right? No, 2 years ago. I apologize, thinking through this.
Yeah. So you already had all of your children and so forth.
Yes.
At that point.
Yes.
And were there any changes or symptoms that caused you to think that something might be wrong with you?
So this is an unusual situation in that the reason why I caught my lung cancer was because of my dad and sister. So this lung cancer came into our life when my sister, a never smoker, was diagnosed with stage 3 lung cancer in 2016. And it was, of course, a shock to all of us because, before that, really lung cancer, you think of that just as smoking causes that, but she had never done that and was healthy. And unfortunately, it was at stage 3 and it was quickly moved to stage 4 when it moved to her brain.
Sorry to hear that.
In January, I know. It was January of 2017 when it was moved to stage 4. And she was not able to get her lung surgery done because of this brain tumor. So that was devastating to know that, it moved so quickly. Then shortly after that, but she was lucky to find that she had an EGFR mutation, which means she could be on targeted therapy. So that was a blessing in that, a lot of people can really respond well to that. So we were lucky that she was able to get on that, and it did seem to control her tumor growth. But then shortly after that, in the spring of 2017, my father was diagnosed with lung cancer.
Wow.
Yeah. And so he was a smoker. So he was, smoked his whole life. He was a Vietnam vet. And so that was in their, rations. It was just normal back then. And, so that
Sure.
he had that impact him. So unfortunately, he passed away just 6 weeks after his diagnosis in June of 2017. So based on that, when my sister was diagnosed, my dad had said, my younger sister and I should get scans, CT scans. We did actually both ask our physicians, and they said, no, that's very unlikely that you also have it. So, just don't worry about it. When my dad passed away, I figured this is something, even though he was a smoker, this is something more than usual. So I pursued it again. And I asked my doctor, and she said, talk to his oncologist. I reached out to her, and she was a wonderful lady, and she was surprised my dad went so quickly, but he had other health issues, and so it was difficult. But she said, why not? So I'm a very fortunate person to have gotten a CT scan, because I'm learning as I got more involved with the lung cancer community. Many people, even with risks such as radon in their home, are not being allowed to get a CT scan. So I got to CT scan in July of 2017, and they find a small spot in my upper right lung.
Wow.
Which is very unusual in that was the same exact spot my sister's and dad's tumors had started in the upper right lung.
Interesting.
My big thing is to research. And so I researched into this and to understand a little bit more, because unfortunately, actually, lots of people have what they call nodules, which is what this was. And that's one of the big concerns with getting too many CT scans, is because there's often benign, nodules that are really nothing to be concerned about. But given my history with my family, I was concerned, and I researched, and the makeup and the location of this nodule I learned was more likely to be malignant. So I pursued a second opinion. They asked me to wait 6 months before I would do a repeat scan or do any other further diagnostics. So when I did the second follow-up, they said, let's 3 months. And I appreciated that, because I didn't have to wait as long, because the problem is, again, if it's not malignant, then there's really, the only thing they could do is a surgery to remove it and biopsy. And obviously that's a big deal.
Sure.
But I knew, I needed to find out quickly, because I did not want this to spread. And, having lost my sister, having been stage 4. So I had to wait 3 months between finding out that this seems to be something. And so in October of 2017, I went back for my repeat scan, and it was still there.
Now, quick question. Was your scan in 3 months later, was that with the second opinion doctor?
Yes,
back with the original doctor?
I did go with the second opinion, because actually I'm so fortunate that my coverage included Mayo Clinic, which is, of course, place, and it's only an hour and a half from my home. So I figured, why not go to one of the best places in the world to get treatment? So I went there, and I, pursued that, the treatment there.
Sure. I've actually been a patient there myself in 1996. So, yeah, you're very close.
Yeah, I'm very, very fortunate. So I was felt blessed for that. So when I went back in October and had the repeat scan, they actually again told me I could just wait and watch. And because typically these are slow growing, but obviously with the situation with my family, that wasn't an option. And with my 3 young children, I just could not wait and watch, because there's so little known about lung cancer and how quickly it can spread. And that's a big thing I'm involved in advocating for now. It's research funding, but I said, no, I need the surgery. So in December, I had surgery, and they removed 2 small tumors. Actually, they found a second one hiding behind the first one, but it hadn't spread. So I'm one of the very fortunate ones to have caught it very early, and I've had CT scans yearly and have clear CT scans since.
So how did the moment, Phil, when your doctor told you what your diagnosis was? I mean, what led up to that, and what was that moment? What was the definitive proof? Was it reviewing the scan again, or was it some type of a biopsy, or what? And what was that experience like?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I felt like I had a slow revelation to this. I mean, obviously, in my family, I had experienced it and knew, the devastating impact it could have. Found out I had it. I had some relief in that I knew it was very early and it was very small. And so, I felt very fortunate for that, because again, many people don't catch it at that early stage. But again, it was hear that and then wait and have them tell you that, oh, you could just wait, but there's just not something I could do. I mean, I knew I couldn't let it get too far. I just didn't feel that would be the right thing for me and my family. And then the second, when they confirmed that it was still there, it was again another confirmation that, yep, this probably is what my dad and sister had. And then when I had the final surgery to remove 2 wedges in my lung, and they biopsied and confirmed that, it was just, again, knowing that it hadn't spread and I was, likely 100% cured, hard to hear that as well, because knowing my father and sister both had discovered it so late.
Now, I assume your other sister that also got the test when you did, hers came back benign or no evidence of.
You mean my younger?
Yes.
My younger sister? Well, so actually my younger sister, luckily she did get a CT scan as well. So it was my older sister who had gotten,
right,
stage 3 diagnosis. But my younger sister, she was fortunate that she didn't have any nodules that they were worried about. So she, I think she's gonna try to pursue yearly scans. But again, it's very difficult to get approval for those because again, there's a very small criteria you have to have in order to get CT scans for lung cancer.
Right. Well, I wish her the best with her preventative follow-up pursuits with scans and whatnot. So
yeah, I appreciate that, because unfortunately, so my sister, who did get diagnosed back in 2016, she again lived well, and she had several different surgeries through one tumor that was metastasized to her neck, just kept popping up, and she'd had 3 surgeries, and her last one was this spring. But unfortunately, the treatment she was getting was not this tumor was not responding. And unfortunately, that we learned that there wasn't much more they could do as far as treatment. She had 7 lines of treatment. Wow. And so she unfortunately had to go on hospice and passed away on May 29th of this year.
I'm so sorry. You've been through so much with your family.
But we were blessed that I was able I was working from home because of the COVID, and my employer was nice enough to let me go and be with her because she was in home hospice. So I was fortunate to be with her. She lives in North Carolina.
Okay.
So I was fortunate to be with her in that last month and be able to be help caregiver for her.
Oh, that's so wonderful that you could be there for her and be in the caregiver role for her. That I'm sure meant so much to her. And
yeah, it was the least I felt I could do.
Sure. Well, when you received your actual diagnosis from your doctor, were you alone or were you with anyone when you finally learned the true diagnosis of what you had?
Yeah, so when I finally learned definitively was after the surgery. So I was at the Mayo Clinic in the hospital, and my mom and sister had come down with me, my younger sister. So they knew ahead of time before I knew, because I had not woken up from the surgery yet. And so, we were just talking and laughing, which was hard because after the surgery, that was very, very painful to laugh because they kind of go through your ribs on the side. And but it was so wonderful to have them there And, again, the fortunate news that we got was that the doctor was very positive that, they got all of it. There was nothing more to really worry about. He honestly said that, after the surgery, I didn't have to do any, do a yearly follow-up, but, I didn't need to see an oncologist or anything like that. So this was the thoracic surgeon.
Right.
But again, I felt like I needed a little bit more. So I did end up going to see an oncologist just to, have that opinion as well for ongoing treatment and monitoring.
So, did you tell other family members and friends about this, or did you kind of keep it to yourself once you found out, or what was that experience like?
No, I was definitely very open about it. Again, given my sister and dad's diagnosis and knowing that, especially with lung cancer, it's really not something people talk about because, again, there's the stigma of smoking. Even though my sister and I were never smokers, there's still, even that's the first question you get when you might say you have lung cancer. And so I felt it's my obligation, and I really want to be able to get the word out about lung cancer. It's not just a smoker's disease, and that, to spread awareness about it's, the number one cancer killer, and it really receives the least funding per cancer death. And just, I had no idea, of course, before this came into my life, I hadn't, realized that. Again, I was probably in the same boat as most people and not really understanding the scope of lung cancer. So again, I felt that I wanted to share,
sure, to
spread the awareness.
Well, my other career is I'm a real estate broker here in Colorado, and okay. I have some firsthand experience with radon levels, and I had one client that was an old friend, and she passed away from lung cancer, and mm-hmm. she was not a smoker, and she had previously had breast cancer and so forth, and survived that, and ultimately she passed after her battle with lung cancer. And then I was asked to sell the family home after that, and the buyer did a radon test, and it came in at 32 picocuries per liter, which is off the charts. The U.S. EPA recommends having a mitigation system installed if your levels are above 4.0 picocuries per liter. And radon gas is a naturally occurring gas that comes up from Mother Earth through like granite and other types of minerals in the earth. And although it was never definitive, I've often thought that that may have been what led to her lung cancer. And, so many people just think, oh, well, that wouldn't happen to me, But yeah. Did you ever look into your home if there had been or was elevated radon levels?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, so I did my home I was living in, but unfortunately my parents or my mom wasn't living in the home we grew up in. But I had honestly thought about knocking on their doors just to say, hey, there's free kits, that you can take and get a radon test. Sure. I haven't done that yet, but it's something I thought about. Just again to spread awareness. But no, we don't know. We had two different homes we lived in when I was growing up. Because we obviously we feel like it must have been something we were exposed to when we were younger, since all three of us had it. And again, there's also the secondhand smoke is a factor as well, possibly. They do Sure. say that, that can contribute, especially for younger, as you're growing up, can be much more, of a factor in terms of developing lung cancers.
Right. Well, that's wonderful that you're spreading awareness about that. And so many people think that lung cancer is just people that have been a smoker or exposed to secondhand smoke and so forth. And there are other causes for it that may be preventable. And so it's well worth looking into. In the hours and days after finding out your diagnosis, how did you deal with the emotions of of that news? I know it was kind of a gradual process that you found out, but how did you deal with that emotionally?
Yeah, no, I think it was, I think once I found out definitively, it was a relief to know that, it was out. But then again, like I said, one of the hardest parts of this is just knowing that, I only found out this because of my dad and sister. And so knowing, I so wish that they could have caught it early. And that's, again, one of the other reasons in honor of them, just really wanting to spread awareness so more people have the chance of catching this early. Because that's really is the key to being able to, have a, better possibility of cure, is to catch this early. So just, I guess that's one of the big feelings I have, is just, it's not guilt, but it's feeling of obligation of knowing, I was given this gift of being able to find this early, and I want more people to have that opportunity.
Well, that's wonderful. And hopefully through our visit here today, there will be people out there that watch this or listen to this that may be able to detect something early, or do something preventatively in their life or the life of a friend or loved one. So thank you for your willingness to contribute here today. It's very meaningful and hopefully very impactful for others, and appreciate it. It sounds like you did pursue a second opinion and so forth. With your type of treatment, were there more than one type of potential treatments or surgeries that you could select from and had to decide which one would be the best for you, and how did you deal with that?
Sure. No, there's really only one treatment as far as surgery, but the two options I have was just waiting and watching, or getting the surgery, sooner. And so that was kind of what the choices I had, because again, they felt that it would be very slow growing. But again, I didn't feel comfortable with them knowing exactly at what point would it really potentially metastasize. So I felt it the best choice, and they agreed with my choice since I'm healthy and I could tolerate a surgery with no issues. They felt surgery was the best option as well. But again, they gave me that option of waiting and watching.
Okay. Now, you mentioned going to the Mayo Clinic there in Rochester. Did you have to commute back and forth from White Bear Township, or did you mentioned that you were hospitalized for a certain period of time there? Was that in like the St. Mary's? I know they have two hospitals there.
Yeah, it was in St. Mary's. Yeah.
Okay.
So basically I had to go too often, because again, I basically went for the initial second opinion, and then the follow-up scan in October. And then really the next visit was for the surgery. And I spent just one night overnight after they had done the surgery. So, okay. And then of course I did a follow-up there as well.
Now, after the surgery and your consultation with your doctors and medical team, were there options as far as follow-up treatments, or once the surgery was done, was everything complete once the scan showed that it had not spread, or were there any additional follow-up treatments?
Sure. So yeah, with Mayo, I did, like I said, went back for the follow-up, just, confirming that the CT scan did look good. Everything was, removed. And then beyond that, they had said, really it would just be yearly CT scans, and didn't set me up with an oncologist. But I really felt like I would want to speak to an oncologist, especially given my family history, just to get their take on the situation. So I got a recommendation, and it happened to be someone at the University of Minnesota. So I went to see an oncologist there, and I got this from... So I went to them for the follow-up, and just to confirm, they agreed with, everything looked good, and that it really would only require yearly scans, which they agreed. But of course, we're very fascinated with my family's history, and, and they do research. So, if anything came up, they thought, maybe, they could use our family as a research study, a case study.
Sure. It'd be very interesting with three of you having had lung cancer. Ladies and gentlemen, we are visiting with Renee Marrero of White Bear Township, Minnesota, who was diagnosed with and survived multifocal lung adenocarcinoma in situ, also known as small cell lung cancer. And Renee, did you have to stop working, or what changes in your day-to-day life occurred during this whole process? I know you left and went to be with your sister as her caregiver for several weeks after all of this, but as far as during your tests and diagnosis and surgery and so forth, tell us about the changes in your daily work and family life that occurred during that.
Sure. So the surgery did require me to stay home for, I think it was home for 6 weeks. And again, it was just recovering from the surgery, and, which is quite painful. I've never really, experienced that type of pain before. Having to give childbirth, that was, painful, but this is painful because you don't know what's normal. I think that was the fear part of it that made the pain so painful, if that makes sense.
Right.
Because you don't know if this you laugh or you cough and you feel like I'm puncturing my lung right now. Is this normal? And so, I did use the doctor call line quite a bit, and, and they reassured me it's fine. And then fortunately there is this, extreme pain. And that's a scary part of that too, is just taking the pain medication, because you hear about addiction or
Sure.
concerns with that, and so I hardly ever even take aspirin. So I was hesitant to take that, but just as long as you're being very careful and using it within means, then you need to do that, because you don't want to suffer through that. So it was a process, and they were very helpful in terms of making sure you understood and used it as needed. And I think I was off within a week from taking any kind of pain medication prescribed. So,
well, that's nice. My doctors always said, when you're sick, if your body needs some medicine, it's not the same as if you're just an addict of some narcotic or something, as long as you can come off of it in a normal time frame and so forth. So you're fortunate that you were able to come off of the pain medication and not have any lasting effects from that. What would you say your lowest point was during your entire journey? And your journey's kind of your own journey, but also your father's and your sister's and so forth. What was your lowest point through all of that, and how did you deal with that?
I would say the lowest point was, losing my sister. Given, she's younger, she has an 8-year-old son, and her husband, just was way too soon. And she, went through all this with such grace and positivity, and was such an inspiration. So the fact that she's going to continue to inspire people. She wrote a book and
Wow.
to tell our story, our family story, and how her faith in God has really carried her through all this. It's devastating, but what she was able to do in her time here is so inspiring, and the faith she's instilled in her young son is just amazing.
Well, that is amazing. And the fact that you went and were her caregiver, I just admire that so much, that you were there for her. I'm sure that meant everything to her. And is it okay? Can we say the name of the book that she wrote? Or
Yeah. I have it with me if you want to see it.
Oh, wonderful.
It's called Let Your Light So Shine. Reflections of God's Goodness in the Storms of Life. And so her name is Julie Dawn Carr.
Oh, wonderful. Let Your Light So Shine.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. So what we'll do, Renee, in the show notes and description below, we'll have a link to that book so that she can spread the word even further through her book to others that may want to read it. So
yeah. Wonderful. And that actually part of the proceeds go to one of the foundations that she wanted to support, which there's many amazing lung cancer foundations. One of which is a local one that I've connected with quite a bit, but the one she's doing also goes to another lung cancer foundation. So.
Okay, wonderful. Wonderful. Well, would love to include those links so that our viewers and listeners can have those resources available to them. So that's awesome. Did you have a particular person or several family members, friends, et cetera, that kind of played the role as your caregiver when you were going through this? And what can you tell us about them?
Yeah, no, I mean, my mom has always been very supportive and helped out, especially with the kids, since I had 3 younger kids. And at that point, it was just myself as a single mom. So it was especially important to have her support with helping them. And then I did, my current husband was a very amazing caregiver. I'd actually had just met him when a month after I found out I may have lung cancer. And so in August of 2017. And so, but he was so amazing. He was able to help me, because I had trouble getting up and down sometimes because of the pain and just making sure I had the medication. He was just an amazing rock during all that.
Well, that does sound like an amazing person to have just met you and been there for you in that way. It sounds like a special relationship that you two have.
Yeah, I feel really blessed. And I feel like, I know not everyone believes in these things, but I feel like my dad was kind of looking out for me after he had passed away and just kind of orchestrated that so I'd have someone there for me. So we've had many, I feel many blessings like that have come about that just seem as though he's up there watching out.
Oh, that's wonderful. I believe in that too. That's so true. So I'm happy that your husband came into your life and was there for you, along with your mom and your kids and your family. So that's wonderful. Couple more questions here. If you had to do it all over again, is there anything that you would have done differently?
No, I think in terms of my pursuing it, I think I did the right thing because, again, I kind of triaged, so basically, my dad, had asked us to pursue a CT scan, we were rejected. And then when he got his diagnosis, he was in a nursing home because he couldn't, walk after this tumor had started progressing. So, but I would go there and help out and caregive as much as I could while he was there. And that was the focus, and so it's just basically, I guess, just triaging and making sure I was focused on what I needed to, when I needed to. And I feel like it thankfully all worked out. And I feel like the one big thing for people to be sure to do is to advocate for themselves and do what they can as far as researching and understanding, anything they're experiencing as far as their health. But of course, being very careful in finding reputable information.
Well, it sounds like your dad really planted the seed for you and your younger sister to really pursue investigating with CAT scans, et cetera, to see if you might be prone to it. So that was wise advice from your father, which led to a successful outcome for you. So
yes, I'm very grateful for that.
So happy for you. How long after your surgery and getting back home and so forth, how long did it take for you to kind of get back to normal life, would you say?
I'd say, it was about, once the 6 weeks was up and I was back at work and, just back to my normal life. So I'd say, about a total of 6 weeks just to get through the recovery of the surgery. And then I felt like I was kind of back up to normal. I even, pursued doing a stair climb to raise funds for lung disease. So that was in February. So I had surgery in December, and that was in February. And I've done that every year since. So
now, tell us about the stair climb. Is that in, where's that at?
So they do it downtown Minneapolis in a building there. This one's for American Lung Association. And they do it throughout the United States in different locations. But so yeah, you just fly, I think it's 30 flights of stairs. That year I just did the one, and I didn't realize it doesn't take that long, surprisingly, so then the following year, the last 2 years, I've done the ultimate, where you see how many times you can do in an hour. So
oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow,
that's fun.
Does it get crowded in the stairway, or?
They do pretty good about, especially they really kind of like break up the different groups. So they do a pretty good job of keeping it not too crowded. And then there's a very cool thing they do here. I don't know if they do it everywhere, but the firefighters have a special time where they all go up in their gear and climb up the stairs with other firefighters gear on. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. We'll put some links to some of those events and so forth. I know they're not having much of that sort of thing this year, but those are great events.
I know, and that'd be the other thing to really encourage people to do, is find connections with organizations, either locally or nationally. I'm fortunate to have a local organization as well here called A Breath of Hope Lung Foundation, and they're amazing as well, doing national work, but spreading awareness, but then, having events where you can get together, or caregiver support groups, or survivor support groups. So
okay.
That's,
and that's a Breath of Hope?
Yes, A Breath of Hope. And that's located here in Minnesota.
Okay.
But they do national work as well.
Yeah. Okay. And what is your job? What do you do for a living?
Sure. Yeah. And that actually, I just started a new job. So I had a lot of changes in the last few years. But I've always been involved in research in one way or the other. And I'd been in educational research for 17 years, but unfortunately was laid off after a large layoff at my company. And so then I pursued, I really wanted to get into medical research in some capacity, given, my experience with my family.
Sure.
So I was fortunate to get a job as a project coordinator at a hospital, really helping to grow, the culture of research, and just making sure they have all the tools and access they need to, make sure they're able to, continue and grow their research.
Wow. Well, that sounds like a very challenging and rewarding career. So I wish you the best with that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So before we wrap things up today, I have one final question for you. Imagine that you are speaking directly to someone that has just learned that they have cancer. What would you like to say to them?
I'd like them to know that they're not alone, and that they, no matter what lifestyle or choices they feel they might have thought this led to that diagnosis, they do not deserve this, and they deserve the best treatment, and to make sure that they know that and reach out to others, community that can support them, whether it's, of course, family and friends, but also those that are going through this as well.
Well, Renee, that is amazing advice, and it's been a real honor to visit with you today and learn about your inspiring journey. And is there any final comments that you have before we wrap up the interview here?
No, I just really thank you for what you all are doing at thecancerinterviews.com, and just spreading awareness for people to know that they're not alone. So I think this is a great effort that you guys are doing. So I appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much for being here today, and hopefully everyone listening can take away something of value from what Renee shared with us here today. I know I will, and please take a moment and leave your comments below, and take a look at the description and show notes below with the links to all of the valuable information that Renee shared with us today. And remember, as Renee said, you're not alone. We're all in this together, and we wish you the absolute best possible outcome with your cancer journey. So until next time, please take care, and we'll see you on down the road.
Thanks for joining us today. For more information, please visit us online at cancerinterviews.com. We appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you back here again next time on the Cancer Interviews Podcast.